Pop culture.
All right, there's a lot of television out there that you could be watching. We have been watching Moon Knight lately. Every Wednesday at, I don't even know what time it comes on, but Disney Plus. It's one of the new Marvel series starring Oscar Isaac and Ethan Hawke. So we've already talked about episodes 1 through 3. Tonight we are on to episodes 4 and 5. We got another double header here that we're throwing at you. So, guys, I'll let you take it away. Whoever wants to start first. What did you think of episodes 4 and 5?
I want to hear Andre say it so I can be mad at him.
All right, Andre.
Okay, so episode 4 was sloshy for me. Didn't really enjoy it that much. In episode 5, actually got a little bit better. And let me tell you why I'm having a hard time with this show. And what I really liked about episode 5 was they brought up a thing that they kind of were going to touch on when the show was first announced. The fact that he's Jewish. And I thought that would have been kind of cool to see in the Marvel universe. Not so much the representation thing, but the actual challenge of, a Jewish kid and this whole Egyptian god thing. I thought that would have been interesting to see. What I'm having a hard time with in the show, and this is really, I've thought about, why am I struggling with this? I personally feel our society has romanticized mental health, and this show is glorifying it. So it's a very, very, it's hard to take it serious. So I look forward to the parts of the show when we're not trying to, depict some type of, depict whatever DID is. And I don't know anybody that's lived with it, or I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Joe, that's kind of creepy. But I do have this feeling, and I'm being serious. I think that our society's in this really, really weird spot with mental health as a whole, and I think this show is glorifying it. And then you hear some of the commentators I see, or people commenting on the show. It's like they're, little weekend experts, and it's just kind of pissing me off. So I think that's probably a hang-up I'm having with the show. Yeah,
Joe.
I actually don't disagree with anything Andre said. So,
what?
Yeah, I know, it sounds crazy.
Thanks for tuning in to this segment of the Christmas.
So on a personal level, with me suffering from aspects of DID brought on by post-traumatic stress disorder, it's just nice to see the coincidence of that. I'm going through this in my life, and then I'm seeing this portrayed on entertainment, and it kind of for me, it feels like you said, it makes it less serious. So in my situation, it makes me feel less afraid of what's going on with me. So I know that sounds kind of I don't know, maybe that sounds therapeutic, but seeing how it's portrayed as kind of for laughs at times, it's it lowers that threat bar for me. Now, having that said, just like in the fire department, there's 1,000 people behind you who tell you how to do your job better, who've never even worked the job. Seeing how mental health disorders are being romanticized or glorified for entertainment purposes in the media now is going to cause an unfortunate side effect of people who have no idea what they're talking about, or should have no authority to talk about those kind of things, start talking about those things. So I think that's just a natural byproduct of those kind of situations. Like the Joker, I think the Joker set a really difficult precedent to talk about, because while the movie, in my opinion, was great, the fanfare behind it was kind of disgusting, and people kind of went a little too far with the whole joke. I love clowns, obviously, but I'm not for saying that it's okay to go out around killing people for some vendetta, which is kind of interesting because we're watching a guy in a similar situation who's exactly doing that. So I really like what they did the last 2 episodes. I think they're doing some excellent world building. When they name dropped the ancestral plane from Black Panther, I was giddy. I was so freaking giddy. Actually seeing one of these deities in the flesh, so to speak, is nice, instead of just seeing Khonshu just disappear like a ghost all the time. And she's so cute. I mean, I'm not one for hippopotamus, but she was really sweet. Like her ears flapping when she gets nervous was just great. So I obviously there's with Disney seeming to be leaning kind of heavily into the mental health aspect of things, like even the next was it multiverse of madness. Yeah. I mean they're gonna be hitting hard on Wanda's trauma and stuff like that. So it gets me thinking about where else could Disney go, and statistically at some point they're gonna mess up. Like even Disney, as big as they are, they're gonna overstep their boundary and they're gonna offend some type of community. And I don't think it's did yet what did, but it's getting close. It's getting really close to that.
Yeah, I think there's a really fine line with how you kind of approach these things, and I'm, like I came away from last night's episode thinking, I believe that the show is good, but I might not be smart enough to keep up with it. Like
what? What? Did you just admit that?
I mean, it's I did. Like I think so like the tomb episode I liked, where they're going through the tomb and it's a lot of like Steven and
okay. Time out real quick. With the whole bottomless pit scene. Were you party or like is there an invisible bridge right there?
There was part of me.
Yeah, like Indiana Jones. You're like, just
Jones.
Throw something. I wish they made a joke like that, and it just fell.
And there was nothing. Yeah, it just fell. But like, so the scene where Layla is like, she's turning the corner right after she's made it across, and like, killed whatever the creepy, prophet thing is or protector, and then Harrow's like comes in from the other side, and he's like, wake up! And she's like, oh, I guess I should turn around and go listen to the bad guy for a little while. I'm sure he'll tell me something revelatory. And then, has this big confrontation with Mark over her father.
She almost got dude killed.
Yeah, I mean, she basically
Well, she technically did.
And so, like, that was one of those things where it was just like, I understand for dramatic purposes why they kind of did it, but at the same time, to me, it just comes across as lazy writing. Like, you couldn't come up with a better way to kind of introduce that or to put those two characters together. And so you did it in this way that really, like, she had no obligation to sit there and listen to any of the things that he was saying or to believe any of the things that he was saying. Like, ultimately, she knows that he's out for Amit's tomb and whatnot, or at least, like, has not good intentions, whether or not she knows what his like end game is. Go ahead, Andre.
I was going to say, and like two things in the in episode 5 that kind of they could have fixed it or did it or presented it better in episode 4, like 2 parts actually. One, the way they explain, Mark is the main person and Steven's made up, right? Yeah. And how Steven was a character he used when he wasn't afraid or to hide from fear, which is kind of interesting because Steven's kind of a tool in his own right.
Yeah. He's a bit of a wimp.
He's an asset.
He's an asset. Well, yeah, a tool.
Yeah,
that you can use. Tool.
And then on top of that, I thought that was interesting, and then I also found it very interesting. So does that mean that Mark is afraid of something else aside from the violence in his life? Possibly. And I also thought it was interesting. They could have not done the whole wake up crap because they explained when he walked through the desert and he saw the dead bodies and like her dad, that would have been a better way to present that. So they rushed it in the tomb to say, well, you killed my dad or whatever, or you were there. That didn't need to happen because it was communicated way much better when he's trying to balance the scales. Yeah. So I think there's a little bit of sloppy writing and like a little bit of payoff and cleanup, but you're right. I think some of it is kind of sloppy where I don't know. I don't dislike the show. The part I'm just struggling with is the representation of this possibly serious mental disorder, right? and I just don't like. I can't really I can't co-sign on that because I think it's done very tacky. So.
Yeah, it does seem like I think Joe, you touched on this, where it's like it's at times it's played for laughs, right? Especially in the early episodes, like it's made to be like this jarring switch, and then all of a sudden, you see like Steven's like, oh my God, why are these people dead around me? Or now the car is driving backwards, or now I'm back in bed, like all of a sudden, and it's like a dream, but. Obviously, that's not really. I mean, like we talked about in the previous review of episodes 1 and 2, maybe 3, that it doesn't really occur like that but I think you said like 2% of people, and even then, it's very infrequent that it's that quick of a transition from one personality to the other. I think episode 5, The Asylum, was probably one of my favorite episodes so far. Because they finally got into that background. Like, you finally get some answers into the backstory behind Mark and Steven and where Steven came from, and that, like you said, Andre, that Mark is the primary personality. And then I think if you go back and watch, like, the first episode again, you'll start picking up on more hints of that. Like, when they're in the whatever city where Harrow, and he gets the scarab, and he's, like, running away and all this stuff, that... Khonshu's talking to Mark, and keeps telling like Mark, like, oh, the idiot's in control again, and if he loses the scarab, I'll kill you both. Like that. Ultimately, I feel like there was more hints to that than I picked up on the first time around. So I don't know if maybe a second viewing helps to clear some of that stuff up going back, but I think the thing that I liked best about the Asylum was the Asylum itself, like the way that whole thing was constructed, and the switching back and forth between, like them being with Tarwera, whatever the Egyptian goddess's name is, and then, Mark or Steven interacting with Harrow as the doctor, and I thought that was kind of interesting, that it's like there was a break within the break. Kind of, it's like.
Who I think has done the what's the name of the DC show with Brendan Fraser?
Doom Patrol.
Doom Patrol. I think they do the multiple personalities better by far with the one girl. I can't remember her name. It escapes me. And it's not so. It's actually, they get so deep into it, you can understand the fragility of her mind, and that wasn't as offensive, or just not just offensive. That's
you talking about Raven?
Not Raven. It's Doom Patrol. Let me Google it.
I haven't watched any of Doom Patrol. I only watched
Doom Patrol
first season of Titans.
Gosh, you guys.
While you're looking that up,
Crazy Jane.
Oh, okay.
So the way that they do the character Crazy Jane is, it's so, like, there's empathy and compassion for the character because they flesh it out and they kind of describe what caused her mental walls to fall apart, and it's done very well. Like the rest of the shows, it can be a show, but that particular character, I'm not upset with the way they present that challenge for her. So I'm kind of frustrated with Moon Knight.
I think there's a couple of things that you guys said that I wanted to touch on. The romanticizing of mental health. I think, yes, you do see, I think, way too much of that just in society in general right now, where it's like, it's not, there's being compassionate, right, and having an understanding for people that are dealing with mental health issues. But then we've moved, and not we, like the three of us, but I feel like society has moved to a point where it's like, well, are you really human if you don't have something that's wrong with you? Right? Like then now it's like everybody suffers from some sort of mental health issue.
Hyper labeling, that is a problem.
And I'll be honest, that's annoying to me. Like I have no tolerance for that. Like exactly. And I think this show does a a good. It does a good job of trying to represent the comic, especially in episode 5. Like, given the backstory, it's somewhat fairly comic accurate, which is great.
Also, incredibly traumatic. Like, holy
yes, like his mom's.
Yeah,
like yo, like that's bananas.
What a bitch. And I get it. Like, she went through some too, but wow, like.
But she did go through something. She didn't have a way to reconcile her son dying, and that's the thing where it's like, yeah. And then the part where Steven says, or Mark says, "But you're supposed to fix that to his dad."
Yeah, Dad, you're such a pussy.
No,
Fuck.
but like, what is his dad doing the whole time?
He's looking at the window and be like, "Come here."
Yeah.
No, you should chase after
like,
your damn son, man. What the?
Yeah.
I mean,
I definitely
as
like,
a parent, I cannot imagine what that would be like, and I know people that have lost children, and like a vast majority of them, well, I'd say it's about 50-50, they stay together. So
yeah.
So
I'm not saying that his dad should have left his mom, but I'm just like,
well, I think
it seemed like his dad basically made a bunch of excuses for her along the way and enabled her to ultimately get to a point of abusing the crap out of their kid.
I think we're gonna get frustrated with the mom because one, there was no setup. That we knew nothing about her going into it, and then in one scene she's like super loving, good mom, and then the very next scene she's like, "I'm gonna chase your ass down and whip you with a belt." Like that kind of jump makes it very difficult for the viewer to like empathize whatsoever. So
I immediately empathized with her. I was like, yo, that went south really quick. I do think that the father played a really terrible role in trying to help his wife through that grieving. The benefit he may have had is his faith as a rabbi. And I think that it's just kind of, that part was like, yeah, okay, I get that. And then you kind of, if you slow the tape down long enough, you'll see as Steven's reading why, like that phrase he kept saying, and he's like, oh crap, then you realize you made me up, right?
Yeah.
And that was kind of like, okay, now this stuff is coming together now.
Stephen Grant, the man with no fear, that was it.
Yeah. And that's where, and now granted, he's got a lot of fear. He's a very very fearful person. And even when Mark Spector was like going, no, you can't make me do that, hitting his head, it shows like there's still trauma. Yeah. So I think all in all, there are some good pieces. I think they just did a very poor job, or maybe I don't like how they did it for the first part of it.
If they had more episodes, it would have paid off better, but this definitely feels like they're condensed. Having that said, besides Moon Knight being right there in the picture, I've been catching up on some Civil War Moon Knight material, because this is a phase where he doesn't have his powers. He's forgone Khonshu and all that stuff. I'm drawing a lot of similarities between this version of Moon Knight and the one we're seeing. Obviously, this one's more of an asshole. He's got some like character flaws. He's written to be so mean to everyone. But it gives me an idea of where they're trying to go with this version of Moon Knight. And he seems he seems more connected to the larger picture of Marvel as they're trying to write it now than from the actual character.
I heard they retconned him, and even in recent comics.
Oh yeah, no, he's been through 3 retcons. And the one they're doing now is more in line with the original character. Which, if you got to think about a character who's changed up so drastically as Moon Knight in the comics, I'm looking at how they're taking him now, and I'm like, okay, I see a lot of respect to the history of the character. Just like you said, the rabbi father, he was a big play in the original cut, and I just like seeing that he was actually at least shown, even though I thought he wasn't done properly. At least he was shown. He's supposed to be like the Uncle Ben persona for Moon Knight in a way. Except
it almost, to me, in episode 5, and I know you kind of like the fact that they brought in his Jewish heritage. It almost felt like lip service to me, like that they mentioned like her Shiva. And then he shows up with the yarmulke, and that was basically
and none of that was in any other episode,
Yeah, like I did feel like it was, and I know that there were a lot of fans that were really pissed off about it. Then Kevin Feige came out and was like, "Just wait and see what we do." And it's like,
I think what they're trying to go is he threw off the whole Jewish side of his family and joined the military. I don't think they presented it very well. It's kind of blink and you miss it.
I do think like it all feels very rushed at this point, and that was the thing that
Sure,
I came away
it's
feeling
6
at the
episodes.
well, yeah, but that's at the end of last night's episode. I asked my wife, I was like, "How the hell are they gonna wrap this up in one episode?
Oh, it's gonna be
like they
big.
have one episode left.
They're gonna have to start it off right Anubis talking to Mark and be like, "What's going on topside? Send me back."
Well, and then I mean, like, if you want, we can talk. I'd like to talk briefly about the very end of the episode,
Sure.
episode 5, because I did really like the point where Steven
What's the V?
is sitting there like terrified, and all of a sudden he's like, "Wait a second,
I'm you.
If
Yeah.
you can do this, that means I can do it too."
I love
And then
that.
he just like whack, and then the cricket line was kind of funny.
And
but
then Mark was like
then-
surprised, like, "Holy, you're doing something."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then Steven gets thrown overboard, and now he's frozen in sand, right? That
Oh, he
balances
doesn't get thrown
the
overboard.
scales.
He tackles the dude and trips overboard.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true.
That's even more.
He goes
like, sad.
overboard. That ultimately balances the scales. Not what I was expecting to be the thing.
So check this out. I want to counter that
Yeah.
for a second. A lot of
Go
people are
ahead.
saying because Steven died, the scales are balanced because there's only one heart weighed. But if you notice on the scale, both hearts are still
They're
there.
Yeah.
I'm thinking because, so like you said, Steven got up and realized I can do it because you can do it. I think Mark also in that moment was surprised, and that's the first time you see Mark screaming for Steven in the entire show.
Yeah, that
So I
was
think
kinda
that's
cool.
what balanced the scales, is that they connect it together in that moment.
Yeah, I think Mark needs Steven for, like, because I think that's probably why he was, like, freaking out.
Yeah.
And I think they're, like, and I hate doing the whole fan theory stuff because the writers, they make you look stupid at the end of the day.
Oh, they do it on purpose. That's a part of the whole like play.
Yeah.
Why you think
But
they put a
I
hippo in
do-
the first season? Hippo stuffy. They want people to start guessing.
I will give them this. I think that they are cleaning up some of the mess with the storyline, and I do appreciate that. But I also kind of feel like what was said and how they close out that final scene with Steven turning into sand and Mark standing in the field by himself. I thought that was kind of dope. I think it's him trying to. What if they rewrite Moon Knight to where he's only one personality? Like that would be the ultimate possibility. Because where it stands now, Steven's gone, right?
Yeah.
Unless Khonshu can just pull him out of the sand
Right.
for whatever reason. But I thought that was done very well. But he still looked lost. He looked sad that he lost his comforter.
Yeah.
Well, it was
And,
his armor in a lot of ways. Like if we,
Yeah.
when we think about like the Moon Knight protective armor, the healing armor that he had with Khonshu, and he'd obviously been without that for the last episode for the tomb.
Hence the 2
And
bullets in
then
the
now
chest.
he's
Double tap.
yeah, exactly. But now he's lost his emotional armor that was Steven, that essentially shielded him from having to like confront all of that trauma and deal with any of the stuff from his past. And I don't know. Ultimately, I thought the thing that was going to balance the scales was going to be them going back and finding the third sarcophagus or the second
I figured
sarcophagus
that
that was
might be
in
as well. Yeah, the
the
violent,
hospital, and that it would
yeah.
be, oh, we're missing one of our personalities. And I'm with you
I
in that.
never-
I don't know that they're going to bring any more, people into this. That maybe it was just Mark and Steven, but no, because they hinted at like, I didn't do that. Well, I didn't do it either.
I think
so
if
like,
they're
there
going
has to be
I think if they're
somebody
going to add
else.
him, they're going to add him. Maybe they're saving him for another show or another movie. Because now that Steven's gone, there's more room for his personality to come through. And
Steven's coming back though.
oh, I mean, he has to. Everybody loves Steven. I want a Steven plushie.
I don't particularly like Steven.
God.
You would.
Oh my God.
I mean, I think he's
Steven with the V.
so his perception of strength and hiding from fear. I don't know if I subscribe to that. And I think that's part of the problem I struck like with the character, not everything
Yeah.
else. Just like, so you'd rather like go into a shell and pretend like none of this stuff is happening.
But
I
that's
kind
not
of-
Steven.
I'll say
I mean, that's
people do
Mark.
that. Yeah, Mark is
No,
doing that.
but hear me out. I think part of that, it's reflective in his relationship with his mom, right? His mom was like almost evil incarnate, but that's the one he opens the first episode talking to and telling him about his day. And so was he stuck in believing his mom was a different person? Was he stuck in,
No, I think he just...
in all these other emotions?
And then even to the end of the... died.
And even to the end of the episode where Steven's like, it wasn't your fault, right? So Steven looked like a clown for most of the episodes, and then comes back with literally the comforting words to say, hey, it wasn't your fault, right? So I don't...
That's why you don't like him.
I don't think he really needed Steven, to be honest with you, but,
Well, I mean, yeah, like, ultimately, it would have been great for Mark if he could have handled all of that on his own. But he was, what, like 11, 12 at the time? Like, when he created Steven, essentially, when that initial
But it was only 2
split.
months past when he, like, completely not just had Steven in his head, but became Steven.
I mean, we don't know what happened in that cave. We don't know. We're alluded that he drowned, but it could have been something worse.
Oh, sure, like the clown from It. my point being is, like, from when Layla said that she hadn't spoken to him for 2 months. Yeah. He apparently went to London, and like, they showed then when he, like, kind of did the whole eye roll thing and became Steven. So I'm saying, like, because your cave thing messed me up.
Yeah.
I think there is I don't know. Crap.
Just say you love Steven with a V.
No, I mean, I'm not saying that you have to like him. I understand why somebody at that young age would have
disassociated.
That's my point. He didn't become Steven, like, on purpose until like his mom died and he's, like, walking away.
I don't even think he did that on purpose. I still think that was just him. Mark and his psyche was not able to process that level of trauma.
Sure, but he wasn't 11.
No, he wasn't, but he was still, like, I don't think he ever really mentally matured beyond that. Like, I think he was so stunted maturity-wise or emotionally from what happened at that young age with his brother dying and then his mom blaming him and basically the whole family falling apart because of that when it came time for her, when she passed, like, it was this, well, she's gone, and now it's this, like, how do I deal with that? And I think that moment was kind of where everything, like, that's when Steven more or less took over for a little bit more, right? Like, that was how I read it. But I mean, they do leave a lot of things up to our own interpretations of it. Probably because, like Joe said, they're trying to set us up so that we believe one thing and then they could turn around and make us look like idiots the next second.
I suppose you guys consider the fact that by the time his mother had passed away, he had been in the military for a while.
He'd been a mercenary. He'd been killing people.
So he probably wasn't, like, the most well equipped to handle that anyway. And usually when you come back, even though she was, like, his abuser, he would have, like, a semi-Stockholm syndrome towards that person, and part of you would always want them. You would always think that they could come around.
And that's why I think Steven loved his mom so much and was always calling her, was because in a lot of ways Mark had Steven create the relationship with his mom that Mark wished he could have had
he says with
his own mother.
Mark says you got to live a life that I didn't. You got to have a mother that loved you and yada yada. But also, this highlighted the biggest problem with the entire show. What cell phone carrier is he using that doesn't reuse the numbers? I mean, how long are you going to call that same freaking phone number and it doesn't say disconnected?
Well, you notice he never dials the phone. He's never ever dialed the phone. As soon as I said that, I remember the doctor showing him a phone that wasn't ringing.
Yep.
I noticed that the first episode, he just...
And when he, breaks there at the funeral outside the house, and then he, like, picks up the phone and calls his mom, he's basically, like, it seems like he's actually talking to somebody. Like, it's not him leaving a message in that one. I didn't think. Yeah. Like, it seemed like he was having a legit conversation with somebody there.
That means he must have heard
it. And so I do think that it was so much more just, like, him in his own head, like, building this relationship that he wished he could have had with his own mom.
Now, do you guys subscribe to the theory that Khonshu was grooming him since he was a kid?
No.
Given how
No,
he felt,
I
stepped
think
on
it was-
the skull and everything.
No, I think that was just a like some random act of like life, right? And I think he just happened to be in the spot. I do think Khonshu probably took advantage of him when he's going to, blow his brains out.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what's up, boy? Don't mess up my statue. It's been clean for 400 years.
Yeah, I would have been like, at that point, if it were me, I probably would have like, okay, now I'm hearing shit.
Yeah,
I
definitely,
gotta go.
for sure. I'm losing blood. Do it.
No, I'm with Andre. I think that ultimately it was more just like a matter of convenience for Khonshu, where he's like, oh, here's this totally crazy person whose mind is already broken that I can very easily manipulate to do the things that I want. And now, whether or not, like, I don't think that Khonshu is necessarily like a bad person or a bad god, but he doesn't seem like the most up and up person either. Right?
Yeah,
No, he's
not good
he's very
people.
much so like the Punisher of the Egyptian gods. He doesn't care how he does it. He just needs to get it done. No, Mike.
Yeah.
Another question I had was, do you think in this next episode they're going to elaborate on what happened between Khonshu and his original avatar,
No.
or if they're just going to leave that?
I don't think
I
they
think
have
it's
time.
Well, that's what I'm
it's
asking. Do
gonna
you
be
think
a
they're going to
choppy
do that?
episode.
Because I mean, they did a lot in episode 5. They did a lot in such a short amount of time, so they may be able to do something similar. Maybe in a boss battle, he mentions why he left Khonshu and all that, or maybe Khonshu left him.
Nobody's going to want to care.
I mean, I do feel
I'm
like
gonna
they've
care.
touched on it a decent amount already between, like Harrow talking about I was, his avatar before and I left, and when he was finally out of my head, I realized that how much I missed the peace and quiet and
I was abused
things
and all
like
that,
that. Yeah, and so I think my take is that maybe they explore it a little bit more, but it'll be basically between Mark and, if anything, it'll be Harrow trying to get Mark to turn against Khonshu again, or to stop Mark from saving and releasing Khonshu.
I did like the idea.
I'm kind of betting Layla's going to die.
Oh God, don't fridge her. Please don't fridge her. Don't fridge Layla. I think she's interesting enough. Plus, she might have.
I'm not putting her in the fridge.
Plus, she might have an interesting backstory to go along with this was a Golden Scarab hero from back then. But no, so
I think that's a stretch. I don't think it's
maybe. I mean, you know how Marvel does things. I mean, they got the freaking Black Knight in here. Like, who thought that was going to happen?
I don't think they're going to go too far with all the side characters. I just don't think that's I think that's a stretch for them.
Well, one last thing. I liked how when they were looking in the dining, pretty much the freaking mess hall of dead people, Marcus made a reference like, I remember all of them. These are all the people Khonshu sent me to kill. I like that symmetry with what the other avatar said about he was just being used and he was being sent to kill all these people and feels guilty about that and everything. So I like we're learning a little more on how Khonshu does things, and it may not be so just like the moon, it's in a moral gray area, whether it is justified or not. So I'm looking to see maybe episode 6 will be the one where Khonshu comes back, but then Mark is put into a situation where he's got to stand up for himself for a chance, and not just bend over for Khonshu, and at the same time save the world. Which I don't think he's saving the world. I think he's just saving like a village, because as many people fell from the sky into the sands, I was like, that's more like a village. It's more like a European village being taken out.
We also don't know the speed at which Ahmed is able to be freed and then immediately start judging and killing
what if that's
people,
just the followers of Ahmed getting purged
I mean,
like that? That's crazy. It's raining men. I love it.
And women. Don't discriminate.
She killed that old lady like that.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next episode. Definitely gonna watch it. But I don't know. It's certainly left me wanting a little bit more from what they've delivered so far, and not in a positive way. Not like, oh, I can't wait for more. It's like, man, I feel like you guys could have done a little bit better with some of the storytelling and stuff like
stop
that.
Like you went to a
corners.
buffet and they closed down 2 of the aisles. You're like, what the what is this?
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. All right, well, that is our review of Moon Knight, episodes 4 and 5. Be sure to tune in next week when we will have our review of the final episode, episode 6, which has not been named yet, so I can't give it away or anything.
We should totally
like that,
dress ourselves up in toilet paper like we're mummies.
Oh, well, that's a great idea. Yeah, definitely going to do that. Andre will be the only one not dressed up in toilet paper.
You're such a dweeb. God, you're so square.
Thanks for checking out the Chris and Andre show. I'm Chris.
I'm Andre.
I'm just
He's
here.
Fireside Joe. Who's
We'll
just
talk to you
here.
next time.
We'll see you guys next time.